Welcome inside the Villa Parlor, where I'll be honest, it's been a real roller coaster of emotions over the last 48 hours, but there has been a couple of glimmers of light inside the last little while. A pretty decent display at Bristol City, 3-0, with Ollie Watkins looking very good, and so did Matty Cash, by the way, and Jaden Philodine-Bedice, who looked very strong in scoring another goal in the preseason. But the big news was the capture and now arrival of Leon Bailey from Bayer Leverkusen, which has inspired me to pour a very nice Appleton Estate rum. I'd like for you to join me as we dissect the arrival of Leon Bailey to Aston Villa.
Nice to have you back again. I'm feeling nostalgic tonight. How good is a caller like this, by the way? And I want to start with a little bit of Courtney housekeeping, because there's so many things happening right now. And first of all, thank you, JT. John Terry departs the club, and I love how Villa and JT parted so seamlessly. Ever since John got his UEFA Pro license, you knew he was probably going to be in on jobs, and this way, he's not going to be linked with every single vacancy and be a distraction to the club. And of course, had he seen out that year and Villa said, well, no, you got one more year with us, John, well, they could have got compensation for him if a club came in for him. But they didn't. They did the classy thing. They wanted one of their own to succeed and move on and say great things about them, of course, as he went out the door, which you know he will. Can I make an early nomination for a replacement in the form of the promotion whisperer, Mile Jedinak, who's currently the Loans player development coach? And of course, the big news and why we're all here today is Aston Villa's huge capture of young Finn Azaz from West Bromwich Albion's academy, a player who Mile Jedinak actually will be in charge of monitoring at the club. I'm just kidding, of course, but interesting signing because this cat is going to be 21 in just a few weeks. So that sort of bucks the trend of Aston Villa going after super young players. He fancies himself as a 10 and loves playing there, but can play 8 as well. And now he's on loan straight away with Newport County. And I loved watching Newport County. In fact, they were really hard done by in the FA Cup, losing to Newcastle. John Joe Shelby scored a scorcher in that one. And they were extremely hard done by in the playoff final against Morecambe. So imagine if Finn Azaz can go and now help Newport County get promoted. What a great thing that would be for everybody. We need to talk about Jamaica for just a quick sec, because what an amazing, magical place this is with beautiful people. And what's always amazed me about Jamaica is here's an island nation in the middle of the Caribbean with just 2.85 million people today. And yet look at what Jamaica has given the world. Reggae, the universally appreciated, adopted, and addictive jerk spice. And of course, some of the fastest human beings on the planet all throughout history. It's as if when you're born in Jamaica, you skip walking and go straight from crawling to sprinting. And that's because Jamaicans have an intense pride and appreciation for speed and athletics. So a guy like Usain Bolt is held in the same cult status, iconic regard as Bob. And you'll never guess who's a very best friend of Usain Bolt. Why, none other than another speedster, Leon Bailey. That's some good company there. So here we go with the holy trinity of why Leon Bailey will boost Aston Villa on and complement their dynamic attack. And our honorable mention is simply the inspirational nature of this guy's story. I mean, here's a kid who was born in a really tough part of Kingston. Kingston is not a tourist town. A place called Cassava Peace. Violent, dangerous, no father. So he's adopted and has 3 adoptive brothers. So he had to grow up fast and young. Now, at 12, his adoptive father basically sold the car and house to found a football academy on the island and then take the boys overseas to Austria to try to get them some trials and looks. They end up in Austria, which, by the way, in February is nothing like Jamaica. And he goes around the academies and he's getting a look here and there, all the while living on tins of tuna, mayonnaise, and bread between all 5 of them. Finally, some eyeballs from Genk get on the kid. And so he's there, but they can't sign him because of immigration rules. His dad flies to Mexico to try to sort out the Confederation paperwork, only to be kidnapped. And the boys did not hear from him for 4 months. All 4 of them don't know what's happening. Can you imagine? And fair play to Genk. I mean, they basically looked after those boys without having any idea what was going to happen to them, what happened to their father. And thankfully, his father was finally released by his captors in the middle of a Mexican desert, penniless. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. But thankfully, reunited with the boys, penniless, of course. And the club thought, well, the least we can do is try to give you a job. I mean, you've introduced us to your son, Leon, and we want to sign him one day. The labor ministry catches wind of that and then raids the club and investigates them for malfeasance. All those obstacles to overcome, and yet finally Leon did make his debut with Genk, and the rest, as they say, is history. Belgium's Young Footballer of the Year at the age of 18. He scores a critical goal that keeps the club's Europa League hopes alive, becomes a cult hero because of it. Isn't it incredible sometimes, these stories? And it feels to me like so many of the world's elite players have to overcome hardship, and their mindsets are totally different than, say, the kid that is driven in a Range Rover in $300 boots to a beautiful new turf field with floodlights. Number 3, Leon Bailey brings something completely different to Aston Villa's attack. And the thing about extreme pace is it makes fullbacks and central defenders very, very nervous. I mean, he may not even have the ball, but they now have to be aware of him. The ball may be on the other side of the field. He makes one run in behind, and you have to respect it. You have to always worry about it, and that is draining after a while. And imagine he goes after a player for 65, 70 minutes, and then you could bring on Bertrand Traore after. And in that Leverkusen attack, I don't know if you watched that even a couple of years ago, but Havertz was in there, Volland, Diaby, Alario. It was a very dynamic attack. And it's not like Aston Villa doesn't have any pace at all. But this is elite pace. And when you look at his expected goal per match numbers, it's 0.25 from the site that I use. And just to compare that to Ollie Watkins, he's 0.23. And again, that's comparing Leverkusen of the Bundesliga with Aston Villa of the Premier League. But you kind of get the idea. He's a dangerous weapon. The second reason why I think Leon Bailey will boost Aston Villa is that he's coming from a very similar type club. And I talk about adaptation on this show an awful lot because here in North America, we see it all the time. Players coming from Europe or South America really struggle with travel, climate, altitude, time zones, you name it. And we've seen it in the Premier League, and we've certainly seen it at Aston Villa. In the Bundesliga, I see a league that, yes, it's not quite to the technical standard of the Premier League, and certainly there aren't as many high-end stars in that league, but it's a very fast-paced, high volume and intense league that's very back and forth. And in that way, I think it's closer to the Premier League than La Liga or Serie A. And Leon Bailey played for a very tactically astute and nimble Dutchman by the name of Peter Bosch, who at the core played 4-2-3-1, which then morphed into 4-3-3, sometimes 3-4-3, and sometimes 4-4-1-1. Well, how much easier is it for a player to come from one club to another when they have such similar systems? It makes perfect sense. But it's not just on the tactical side. Bayer Leverkusen has been a very progressive club over the last few years, combining very good youth development with very strategic recruitment. Does that sound familiar? And I put them in the category with a number of other clubs that are quite similar. You've got Wolfsburg from the Bundesliga, plus Sassuolo and Atalanta from Serie A. They all have something in common. Over the last several years, they have incrementally been improving and encroaching on the respective teams in their leagues that are playing Champions League football. Now, Aston Villa wants to be in those very places, and I wouldn't be surprised if they actually looked at the clubs I mentioned and tried to figure out, well, what have they been doing to be successful? But again, you've got a player from a system in a club that's kind of similar in how it goes about things. That will make him much, much more capable of adapting sooner. And the number one reason why I think Leon Bailey will boost Aston Villa, he has incredible speed of thought. It's one thing to have elite pace, and this is world-class pace. What was he clocked at in the Bundesliga last year? Something like 36 plus kilometers an hour. That is ridiculous. It's quite another to be able to make split-second decisions that can either free a teammate or get you by somebody with a little touch here or a subtle little movement there, and he has that. We've seen Emi Buendia do some pretty incredible things to sit down some of his opponents, whether it's dropping a shoulder or making a pivot or something. But he's not going at full pace. Leon Bailey is going at full throttle, and yet sometimes, somehow, some way, he manages to find a pass that nobody else can see while he's at full pace. And compare him, for example. This is why pace is not the only thing that matters. Yes, it's a nice weapon. Yes, you have to respect it. But Adama Traore, remember when he first arrived at Villa? All I could think of is this guy is a speedboat without a pilot. Right? Now, he's refined his game since then. I don't know what happened to him last year, but something has fallen off. Maybe he's just too big, but that is not Leon Bailey. You watch his highlights. You watch him play with Leverkusen over the last few years, and some of the decisions he makes at full throttle is absolutely incredible. And I am dying to find out whether that truly translates in such a fast-paced league like the Premiership. Now, the one minor thing about this signing that does concern me a little bit, even though that Leon Bailey didn't play at all for Jamaica at this past Gold Cup because he's still recovering from that broken toe that he sustained at the end of last year, he will likely be very involved in the Reggae Boys' attempts to qualify for the 2022 World Cup, which in CONCACAF is a 14-game odyssey that requires a lot of travel, and that starts as early as the fall. And when you consider that Trezeguet is nowhere near this team until well into 2022, and that Bertrand Traore is going to represent Burkina Faso at AFCON in January, Aston Villa still may need to recruit either a winger or a forward or somebody that could do all three. I don't know, somebody say from River Plate, perhaps. But as far as recruitment has gone, so far, so good, you have to say. I'd like to go back actually to my show with KJ that I did about a month ago, where we looked at what positions Aston needed to focus on. And when you look at it, they've actually done a lot of what I suggested, which was a right-sided attacking player. Thank you, Emi Buendia, who can also play as a 10, but anywhere else, let's be honest. Left-sided attacker, now taken up by Leon Bailey, who can also play on the right and up front, bringing elite pace in the process. You got your fullback cover at both left and right, thanks to Ashley Young, who also brings immeasurable experience to the squad. But an elite six or a defensive midfielder? We may still have to wait a little longer on that one in this window.
Who doesn't love a great footballing story and a get you out of your seat speed merchant? Nobody that I know. And what a great addition to Aston Villa's attack. How it will look in 2 weeks' time, we have no idea. It seems like there's an awful lot of moving parts. But until then, let's take a breath, have ourselves a glass, and welcome Leon Bailey. And as always, up the mighty Villa.